All right, folks, get ready to blast off. Because today, we're going on a deep dive into space tourism.
Ooh, space tourism.
We've got a whole launch pad full of sources for this one. A Wikipedia overview, some academic papers, even a peek at a German rocket project from way back when.
Sounds fascinating.
Our mission, to go from to whoa about space tourism. How did it all begin? What kinds of space tourism are out there? And what does the future hold? It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, it really seems like space tourism has gone from like sci-fi fantasy to something that's actually happening.
Totally. So let's get down to Earth for a minute. When did this whole space tourism thing actually take off?
Well, officially, space tourism blasted off in 2001.
2001.
Yeah, that's when an American businessman, Dennis Tito, became the first paying space tourist.
Wow, the first. So what, he won a contest or something?
Not exactly. He paid his way onto a Russian Soyuz spacecraft.
A Russian spacecraft?
Uh-huh, all the way to the International Space Station.
No way, the ISS. So early space tourism was a Russian thing.
Well, they were definitely pioneers.
So 2001, that wasn't even that long ago.
It does seem pretty recent when you think about it.
I guess back then, it was really exclusive. Our Wikipedia article mentions Tito's trip cost somewhere between $20 and $25 million.
Yeah, early space tourism was definitely for the ultra-wealthy.
20 million bucks for a vacation? That's
Right.
more than a whole lifetime of vacations for most people.
Definitely not your average weekend getaway.
Okay, so we've established people are going to space. But what are they actually doing up there? Is it all just floating around and taking pictures?
Well, there's actually a key distinction to understand when it comes to types of space tourism.
Oh, there are different types of space tourism.
Yeah, you got orbital versus suborbital.
Orbital and suborbital. Okay, lay it on me. What's the difference?
Okay, so think of it this way. Orbital space tourism, that's the ultimate experience. You're actually orbiting the Earth, just like living on a space station in a sci-fi movie.
Ah, I see. So you're up there for a while.
Exactly. Extended stays, experiencing true weightlessness for days. You get those incredible panoramic views of Earth that everyone dreams of.
So that's the luxury cruise of space travel.
Exactly. Now, suborbital, that's more like a quick, exhilarating thrill ride.
Oh, okay. So shorter trip.
Yeah. Imagine being launched to the edge of space, experiencing weightlessness for a few minutes, then you come right back down.
I see. So like a roller coaster, but in space.
Pretty much. It's still incredible, but much shorter. And potentially more affordable. Companies like Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin are focusing on this type of space tourism.
So one's a luxurious space cruise, the other's a wild roller coaster to the edge of space. Got it. But how did we even get to this point? Was it always private companies driving this?
Actually, the history's pretty interesting. Even during the Cold War, the Soviets had a program called Inner Cosmos that sent people from other countries into space.
Yeah, the Wikipedia article mentioned that. It started back in the 1970s. They sent cosmonauts from all over Czechoslovakia, Poland, even Cuba and Vietnam.
It was a big step showing that space exploration could go beyond just the superpowers.
Wow, really pushing those boundaries.
And then in 1991, a British chemist named Helen Sharman became the first Brit in space.
Helen Sharman.
Yeah, chosen from, get this, over 13,000 applicants.
13,000 people applied. That's incredible.
It really shows you how many people have been dreaming of space travel for a long time.
It must have been an amazing experience.
Absolutely. And it's that enduring fascination that eventually led to the rise of private companies, like Space Adventures, Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin.
Yeah, the big names we know today.
Exactly. They saw the potential to turn those dreams into a real business.
Smart move. So that brings us up to speed on how we got here. But things are changing fast. One of our sources mentions this crazy idea of point-to-point suborbital flights.
Ah, yes, point-to-point flights.
Yeah.
That's where things get really interesting. Imagine flying from London to Sydney in just 80 minutes.
Wait, what? 80 minutes? How is that even possible?
That's the potential of point-to-point suborbital travel. Instead of airplanes, you'd hop on a spacecraft and be whisked across continents at incredibly high speeds.
Okay, now that is mind-blowing. Sign me up.
Yeah.
But seriously, is this technology even close to being feasible?
Well, it's still in development, and there are definitely design challenges to overcome.
I bet.
But this research paper suggests that point-to-point travel could actually become a reality. Maybe not tomorrow, but in the not-too-distant future.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But all this speed and convenience, I have a feeling it's not exactly going to be cheap.
You're right. We need to shift gears and talk about the business side of space tourism because it's not just about the thrills. It really boils down to a very specific type of customer.
You mean those time-poor, cash-rich individuals? The ones mentioned in one of the research papers.
Exactly.
The folks who value their time above all else.
Right.
And are willing to pay a premium for experiences.
Yeah, experiences that most people can only dream of.
We're talking high-powered executives.
Entrepreneurs. The kind of people for whom time literally equals money.
You're constantly on the go.
Seeking those unique and exclusive experiences.
And the research even suggests that even with the current, sky-high prices,
right,
the demand for space tourism,
it's only increasing.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I totally get that whole time is money thing, though. I mean, who wouldn't rather spend 80 minutes on a suborbital flight to Sydney
right,
than, endure 20 hours crammed in an airplane? But it does make you wonder.
What's that?
Will prices ever come down enough for,
the average person?
Yeah, the average person to actually afford a trip to space?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
It's tough to predict the future, but there are definitely some factors that suggest space tourism could become more accessible over time.
Okay, give me some hope here. What kind of factors are we talking about?
Well, for starters, reusable spacecraft.
Oh, like what SpaceX and Blue Origin are working on.
Exactly. That technology could significantly reduce launch costs.
Because you're not building a whole new rocket every time.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And as the space tourism industry continues to grow, we could see prices becoming more competitive.
More players in the game.
Yeah. Which usually means better prices for consumers, right?
Right. Competition is good. But what about the, Yeah, the flip side. What are some of the challenges facing the space tourism industry?
Well, one major hurdle is the legal and regulatory landscape. It's still very much evolving.
So the rules aren't quite there yet?
Not entirely. The article we have here points out that the rules governing liability and insurance in space tourism are very complex.
Complex, huh?
And not fully settled.
So basically, if something goes wrong, it's not entirely clear who's responsible.
That's the gist of it, yeah.
That sounds a bit risky for both the companies and the passengers.
It's definitely an area that needs further clarification and development. And, of course, there's the inherent risk of space travel itself. Even with all the technological advancements, things can go wrong.
Right, like potential for accidents during launch or reentry.
Even while in space.
It's not exactly a walk in the park.
Exactly.
A lot can happen out there.
And speaking of potential issues, there's another crucial aspect we need to consider.
What's that?
The environmental impact of space tourism.
Ah, yes. It's one thing to be excited about space travel, but we also need to be responsible citizens of planet Earth.
Couldn't agree more.
Got to think about the big picture.
Absolutely. And our research actually brings up a study
Interesting.
that raises concerns about the potential for space tourism to actually worsen climate change.
Wait, what? Worsen climate change? I thought space travel was supposed to be the future. How could it be bad for the environment?
Well, the study points to the emissions from rockets.
Rocket emissions, huh?
Specifically, black carbon.
Black carbon.
Okay. And these emissions, they could potentially damage the ozone layer and contribute to global warming.
So it's not just about the individual experience of going to space.
Right.
We also need to understand the potential consequences for our planet as a whole.
You hit the nail on the head. It's an ongoing debate. How do we balance the excitement of space exploration with the responsibility to protect our environment?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
And it leads perfectly into our next topic, the future of space tourism. What could this all look like down the road? What's next?
Well, let's shift our focus from the present to the possibilities that lie ahead.
Okay, so we've talked about where space tourism is, NW, and some of the challenges it faces, but let's get to the fun part. What does the future of space tourism hold? What kind of wild possibilities are we looking at?
Well, imagine this. Space hotels.
Space hotels.
Yeah, offering panoramic views of Earth.
Wow.
Lunar bases where you can take a moonwalk vacation.
Moonwalk vacations?
Maybe even Martian colonies someday. Remember that Bigelow Aerospace Habitat module mentioned in one of our sources?
Yeah, I think so.
That kind of technology could be a stepping stone to establishing a long-term human presence beyond Earth.
Whoa. Space hotels? Moon vacations? That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But seriously, how far-fetched is all of this? Is this really something we could see in our lifetime?
Well, some of these ideas might seem like distant dreams, but the pace of technological development in the space industry is absolutely staggering. What seemed impossible just a few years ago is rapidly becoming a reality.
I guess you're right. Things are moving so fast.
And as we discussed earlier, the drive to reduce launch costs and increase accessibility is fueling incredible innovation.
So you're saying that someday space travel could become as commonplace as hopping on a plane?
It's certainly within the realm of possibility. Remember how we talked about the price of Dennis Tito's trip to the ISS back in 2001? $20 to $25 million?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Now companies are aiming to offer suborbital flights for a fraction of that cost.
Really? That's amazing.
The trend is definitely pointing towards more affordable space travel.
And if those point-to-point suborbital flights become a reality, who knows what other advancements we'll see in space transportation? The possibilities seem endless.
Indeed. And beyond the purely commercial aspect of space tourism, increased access to space has the potential to unlock incredible scientific discoveries. Think about all the research that's already been conducted on the International Space Station. Imagine the possibilities if we could send more scientists, researchers, even citizen scientists into space on a regular basis.
It's like opening up a whole new frontier of knowledge and exploration. So exciting. But with all this talk of progress and excitement, it's important to remember that the future isn't always a utopian paradise, right?
You're absolutely right. It's crucial to approach the future of space tourism with a balanced perspective, acknowledging both the exciting possibilities and the potential pitfalls.
So what kind of pitfalls are we talking about? What are some things we need to be cautious of?
Well, as space travel becomes more accessible, we need to consider the ethical and social implications. Who gets to go to space? What are the environmental impacts of increased space traffic? How do we ensure that the benefits of space exploration are shared equitably? These are all complex questions that we need to grapple with.
Those are some really important questions. It makes you think about the future of space tourism in a different light. It's not just about the adventure and the excitement. It's also about our responsibility to use this technology wisely and ethically.
Exactly. And that's a conversation that needs to happen at all levels, from policymakers and industry leaders to everyday citizens like ourselves.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Would you go to space if you had the chance? What are your hopes and fears for the future of space tourism? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
This deep dive has only scratched the surface of this fascinating and complex topic. We encourage you to continue exploring and to engage in thoughtful discussions about the future of space travel.
Because ultimately, the future of space tourism is up to all of us to shape. And who knows, maybe someday we'll all be taking vacations beyond the clouds.
Until then, keep looking up and dreaming big.
And that wraps up our deep dive into space tourism. We hope you enjoyed the journey. Join us next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.